The broadcast is live.
I can now officially not say anything until I hear you say that. just kidding. It's like I'm a trained puppy now. So,
Well, he does live in New York State, so you can say live from New York. It's Friday night.
Yeah.
Well, what is this? The stream is running itself. We had the duck. They wanted to make sure they knew it was Stream Duck we're using. All right. The first okay. So apparently we're breaking the bad news for some people of what happened earlier this week.
Richard Corben.
December 2nd, but they didn't announce it. So sorry you had to hear it in a title of a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And what is so great about this individual showing up here is that Paolo gave us the history of the word go ahead, say it.
Varangian.
Yeah.
Varangian.
I'm not going to let win it.
Yeah. Also, I've met Varangian Vigilante. He's also European, so we're invading.
I would prefer it, to tell you the truth. You're going to bring some great cuisine, from what I hear. So yeah, but
well, it's Austrian, so they have great Wiener Schnitzel, which is actually a very safe food. If you're in Austria, you don't know what you want to eat.
Nice.
It's like ordering a hamburger in the U.S.
Yes, but better.
I can remember going to where was it? Wisconsin. I went to a Green Bay Packers game once, and we went to this hamburger joint that had good hamburgers, nice place. But it was the first time I'd ever seen they put fried egg on their hamburgers.
So
they had hamburgers made in all sorts of different ways that I had never seen before. I was like, and that was one I particularly liked, a fried egg on a hamburger.
It works, but it's got to be runny. Otherwise, it's too tough.
Right, that's what it is.
Yeah,
and I think they did one where they put a pat of butter in the middle of the hamburger.
Okay, that's weird.
I've seen people cook them that way.
Yeah,
I think the butter burger I think might be a Wisconsin thing. That's the only place I've heard of it. Followed by people being very sick after they've ate it.
I watched a TV show once where people would steam burgers, and I think this started in Connecticut or Massachusetts. And sometimes they would add a little pat of butter in the middle to keep it moist.
Yeah,
that's an Albany expression.
Yeah. But
Simpsons reference from the early 90s. Steamed clams. I said steamed hams. That's what we call hamburgers in upstate New York. Well, I'm from Utica, and I've never heard that. It's an Albany expression.
Yeah, I never knew about an egg on a hamburger until like 2009. It was a place called Texas Tavern. It's called a West. How am I going blank about what Texas Tavern? I was in my head before I say, but anyway, I never saw it before. And after all my journeys and stuff and all that stuff I'm bragging about, I finally realized you only go to restaurants at breakfast, Tim. You know?
Yeah, I can remember at this restaurant, there was at least another dozen ways they made a burger that I had just never seen before. I was like, they do what to their burgers?
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of different ways burgers can be constructed.
But it's like I've been to burger places in New York, really good burger places in New York City. Uh-huh. And the burger itself is almost always intact, the same kind of thing. It's always just sort of grand, and they'll put, different sauces on the burger, but they'll almost, they won't put a fried egg on it, or they won't put a pat of butter in it, or all these other crazy stuff I saw done in Wisconsin.
The dream I let go, and for good reason, it totally turned me off, is for years I heard about in Memphis. There's a place where since 1912 they have the same frying pan, iron skillet, whatever, that they make the burger in. And so in the grease, they've never changed the grease. So it's still got the molecules of a 1912 burger.
Uh-huh.
When they moved buildings, they took the grease with them.
Yeah. And it might be the same town that's had the same light bulb in the fire station since like 1878.
They actually had that stuff in a giant vat, and they had a police escort to take that to the new location.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. So I'm like dying to have this burger. I've thought about it and, all this stuff. And then finally I saw another documentary about hamburgers, and they finally show what they do to it. Not only do they make the burger, and they stack it up. They put the cheese on it, but then they pour the grease on top of the cheese and down the burger. And that's when I was just like, you know.
I have to tell you that the greasiest pizza I ever had. Back in the early 90s, when I was working at Marvel, we used to go over to this pizza joint. And as good as New York pizza is, there's plenty of bad New York City pizza too, because there's just so many pizza joints. I mean, you can get the best pizza of your life in New York. You can get mediocre pizza. You can get bad pizza because there's a lot of pizza joints. So we used to go to this one place that was a mediocre pizza joint. It was more like a cafeteria too. It had a lot of crap in it. And I just had to get it this one time because it was the greasiest thing I've ever seen. It was ground beef pizza. So imagine slice of pizza with, pan-fried ground beef just on the top with all the accompanying grease that comes with ground beef. It was just like there was just like this pool of orange grease on the top.
Right.
Domino's now has a cheeseburger pizza, just to let you know.
Most large chains do.
And Scott, it's just now dawning on me how I talked about the Memphis burger, and it didn't really surprise me that you knew about it because we watched some of we know, but it's when you knew about the police escort. I'm like,
I was watching a documentary on hamburgers one day, and they were talking about that.
Yeah. And just for
like
Paolo,
Popeye now,
and just for Paolo,
hamburger experts.
And just for Paolo, I brought the new coffee mug. I'm not going to wash it. I'm not going to drink it. But what's great about this is automatically my favorite one. This replaces the Boba Fett and the Spock. But what pushes it over the edge is you bring it around. I'm going to go ahead and excuse me. You have a joystick for a handle.
Perfect.
So,
if that one had a slightly different paint job, it would look like the spaceship that was used in the animated Heavy Metal movie.
Yeah. Let's go for take me on. Right.
When you drink out of it, you make the noises.
No, I sing the song. The
Pac-Man Fever.
The Eagles wrote a song, "Take a Ride" or something.
When you actually see Pac-Man in 3 dimensions, it looks like a South Park Canadian.
Yeah.
I just wasn't expecting that.
Blame Nintendo.
All right. Okay, what we got here? Somebody's calling you out again.
No, it's the equivalent for weak, but because we only use it for coffee, American coffee, which is not coffee, it's coffee flavored water. There is only one acceptable way to drink coffee, and it's espresso.
Now, I'll go back and forth on the coffee, but the one thing that I submit to, I will take the knee to, is after I actually had real ale and not, Pabst Blue Ribbon or, you know what I'm saying? The cheapest beer you can get in high school where everybody just empties their pockets. Right. And then I remember the first time I had a dark ale, and it was all over with. I'm like, it's Kool-Aid over here. That's nothing but Kool-Aid,
Well, Paolo obviously has to get some coffee at a truck stop. Because coffee. Not that I've ever actually drank it because I'm not a coffee drinker, but I've heard tales of truckers' coffee.
Circle K.
Well, in our truck stops, they also have espresso.
The coffee they give the truckers to keep them up isn't the same coffee everybody else drinks.
Circle K. I had people from work.
Amphetamines.
I had people at work stop when they were seeing clients themselves. They stopped at my Circle K because they wanted to see where I got my coffee that I would walk in with every day. And so they're like, "This is it. This is where Tim gets his coffee." Because I'd be jacked up. I'd be jacked up by 9:30 some mornings when I get the Colombian brew. Well, I'm glad we're all laughing and everything, but somebody who was like very, very shy to the point where I'd heard stories where it was like a clinical shyness, but a talented man, the Richard Corben has passed December 2nd. And what I think the news came out, what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah, it came out pretty quickly too. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, it was everywhere.
And I was waiting for him to show up. I invited
Silver
Dr.
Age.
Silver. Dr. Silver Age was invited on. He's got an open door, but let's all send him good vibes. I don't want to put his business out there, but he's having a little surgery there on Monday. So, yeah. But
send him. We'll keep those good vibrations happening.
It's like the Beach Boys.
Exactly. But Rich Corben passed away, 80 years old. I mean, wow. And it blows my mind because I'm probably like everybody else. It was heavy metal as a kid. His art stood out. I'll talk about Jack Kirby scared me. His stuff blew my mind, with what he did. But I didn't really get into him until he was the same age I am now with his art. He was probably like 48 in high school when I finally really started looking at some of his stuff that was around the house. That's when I appreciated what he was doing, So.
Yeah, I was just telling these guys before we started, I'm kind of an oddity among Corben fans that I know, in that I'm more of a fan of 21st century Corben than 20th century Corben.
Bigfoot and the Hellboy stuff, and
what made me a fan of, strangely, what made me I've got some stuff to show you. I bought some Corben, in the 20th century, but I didn't really become what I'd call a Corben fan until his Cage book with Brian Azzarello, and I wasn't even really a fan of the writing. That was 2002.
Okay.
But his art, or he was, to me at that point, he was and that may have been the first Corben I'd seen in years. He was such a master storyteller that I just fell in love with his work, and I bought everything from then on in. Matter of fact, let me show you some of the early stuff. This is these are my Corben individual comics. I remember I first discovered him in heavy metal too, but I didn't really buy heavy metal, and I wasn't really that big a. You know what it was about? I wasn't a big fan of his art because they always remind me of like balloon animals or something. Not that I really disliked it, but it just didn't speak to me.
They were thick. It blew my mind when I found out he did the Meatloaf "Bat Out of Hell" album, and I probably would have figured that out if I didn't grow up in the days of cassettes and little CDs, Yeah.
Well, this is a Corben special, Pacific Comics from 1984. This was the first individual Corben thing I ever bought. I haven't had it out in years. I think this is reprints of some of his stuff from the 70s even.
Excuse me.
I'm not sure, but this is the first thing I specifically bought of Corben's in '84, and then I picked up. This is a series from '86 called "R.I.P in Time." This is his own. I think this is Fantagor. When he was publishing his own stuff, so it was in black and white.
Own, company.
I have this. Yeah, I have some of that. Yeah.
And what's funny is, I don't think I got what is it, a 5-issue series here? I didn't get issue 5 until the early 2000s because for some and all the people I met over the years were missing issue 5. Something happened with issue 5 where it wasn't distributed properly or it was late or something. And I was like, I met people over the years and everybody was missing issue 5 from my collection. Matter of fact, I ordered this in the early 2000s, my local comic shop would sell it's like all that Marvel stuff where you have to buy 25 copies to get the 1 in 25 cover. Well, that means they have 25 copies they can't sell. So they would always sell that to mycomicshop.com, Lone Star Comics, for credit. So my LCS owner would always say, if you want to order anything from there, just tell me and we'll order them on credit and get it for you. I was like, sure. So it was like, I was like, you know what? Order me "R.I.P in Time" number 5.
Well, I'm going to slow down here for a minute because Dr. Silver Age, I think I saw somebody else, don't know a lot about Corben, but For a lot of people, it was in heavy metal #1.
Right.
Right. And that's where a lot of people seen him. In America, that's where a lot of people discovered Mobius at the same time.
Right.
And Corben's art, to me, is sort of like it's grotesque beautifully, and you can't look away, even though some things his textures and that thickness and the distortion that he put in there was perfect. You know, I mean, enough to like dent your brain. Uh-oh.
Yeah, his art style really didn't look like anybody else.
Yeah. And then he had Den. He had like this Edgar Rice Burroughs story. And what was so funny about that is that he did book covers and album covers too. I would see his artwork and not realize it was him until I got a little bit older. And I'm like, holy crap, it's Corben. But he had Den, and that was in the heavy metal movie in 81, 82, whenever that came out. And then you know, I started hearing these stories like he was turned down by all the comic book companies in the 60s or something. I don't know if that was true.
I just read a story that said that Joe Kubert and Jack Kirby tried to get him to some work at DC. And they both. This was like after his underground stuff in the early 70s. And Joe Kubert was like, they both saw stuff like, you should do some work for DC. And Joe Kubert like formally tried to get him work, and Richard Corben went, no thanks. Right. I just want to do my own thing. Yeah. And Joe Kubert was, what? And Jack was like, good for him.
And then in the 90s, I would see his stuff like in magazines that wanted to be like heavy metal and stuff. Right. I think I even have like some Penthouse comics where they brought back Den, or he called it Dens. I mean, you know, when it comes to Corben, you just knew his artwork. You know his stuff he's working on. But what blew my mind was in the 2000s when Joe Quesada got there and became editor-in-chief. The next thing you know, you got the guy that did Madman on a monthly comic. But then you turn around and you got Corben doing the Incredible Hulk Banner miniseries in his 60s. In his 60s. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing is that it looks like heavy metal was the first time that a lot of Americans were exposed to Richard Corben, but heavy metal started 2 years after Metal Hurlant started in France, and there is already a Richard Corben story in Metal Hurlant #1 in 1974.
Yeah, he was actually an underground artist in the 60s too. I never saw any of this stuff. This is where the Banner miniseries is. This hardcover of Hulk #1, Return of the Monster with Bruce Jones. And the back of it, we've got the Corben Banner miniseries. So you can get that here, which is pretty cool.
Right. Now,
and then another.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You got me on too, still, instead of everybody.
I knew something was wrong. Okay.
And honestly, and then after that Rip in Time series, I don't have any Corben I don't think I saw any Corben through most of the 90s, or at least I didn't buy any Corben through the 90s.
Yeah.
I think the first time I got exposed to Corben's work was when he started doing a cover for Epic Illustrated.
Oh yeah,
#2.
I've got all those issues of Epic too. Like I knew Corben and I bought those couple of series, but I didn't really see a lot of his work in the 90s.
He did an adaptation of the Harlan Ellison story "Bloods Are Over," which was really good.
Right.
You know, Richard Corben is a kind of an artist that you can't pick up unless you go through back issue bins. You can't go, you can find out about Corben and go, okay, let's pick up something that's readily available. There isn't. All of his work, even if it's collected, disappears. Yeah. And Corben has always been very uneasy about getting his old material back in print because he doesn't seem to like it very much.
Well, his wife says she's going to continue with publishing his work. This is excellent. I don't know if this is Hellblazer 146 through 150.
Yeah.
Corben, and is this Azzarello again?
Yeah, that's on Hellblazer, John Constantine. I could go through. I didn't have time to go through and pull those out, so I'm glad you have that. Yeah.
Yeah, these I didn't know existed. My friend Bunch, who's the biggest Corben fan I know, he's got all his 70s. He's got tons and tons of Corben stuff. But he got the trade of this, so he's like, "Do you want my original issues?" I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
And this is just a really it's Hellblazer in prison, drawn by Corben.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're just waiting for John Constantine to be John Constantine, and he doesn't let you down. And it's just so well. Like I said, by this time, Richard Corben is just such a master storyteller that it doesn't matter what story it doesn't even matter if I don't like the script that much, because I'm not a huge Brian Razzarello fan. The artwork just carries the story.
Yeah, just to let it, and just to know, if you check out that Hellblazer, that's probably a really good example. See, what blows my mind is all the mainstream work he got in his 60s, 70s, all the way up to his 80s.
Yeah.
And when you read that story, there's a shower scene in there. It's prison. There's a shower scene in there, and I tell you what, man. After I read that, I could feel the mildew on my feet from that shower. You can feel the dirt and the nastiness on the prison. I mean, it messes with you the way he can draw. It's like he draws the texture in the atmosphere. I mean, it's
very
like
atmospheric artist. He sure was.
Yeah. It's like watching a Grindhouse movie
Plus
and you go take a shower.
The color work he did back in the early 70s was like something nobody else was doing at the time.
No. I still,
Matter of fact, someone just posted a tweet explaining how he did that, and I found it really interesting. How he got his color, and it's something you can do in Photoshop now easily.
Sure.
But he used to shoot his own film because the way that printing works, especially that now you've kind of skipped this step, is you have the physical artwork, and you basically take a picture of the physical artwork with a piece of film, photographic film rather than paper. And then you use that photographic film to make the color plates.
Gotcha.
What he would do, and you have the 4 plates, red, yellow,
green and blue.
He would, like, usually the printer does this part too, or the color separator at the time. He would take when he would go to take the picture of his artwork with a big, graphics camera, he would turn it up so it had a much higher contrast than you would for any normal printing.
Right.
And so he'd flood the high end of the color spectrum. He'd flood the high end of blue, he'd flood the high end of yellow, he'd flood the high end of red. And that's how he got that really bright, contrasty look to his color artwork.
Yeah, and he was
I found that interesting.
Yeah, and he was probably like in his he was in his 30s doing that, I think.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's like no one did that. No one knew how to do that.
I remember his Rat God stuff. There's people that's read his stuff. Heavy Metal 301.
That card in this pile.
Heavy Metal 301 has an Essential Corben interview, apparently. It was like he was saying goodbye. Murky World.
Yeah,
a retrospective in France. Well, good. It's good that he was celebrated while he's alive. Yeah.
Right. It was, and John Angelo was mentioning Tanino Liberatore. Tanino Liberatore created the character Ranxerox with writer Stefano Tamburini, and Liberatore's art is very clearly inspired on Richard Corben. It's the way he distorts the character's facial features is the same way that Corben built the character's bodies.
Yeah.
Right.
And Tommy Bagley here says the first time he saw Corben was his guest art on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's another reason it's tough to track down Corben stuff. He did 4 issues here of Turtles. He did this over
all
there,
over the place.
this over there.
The Dark Horse Poe stories that he had adaptations of. This was probably the last big thing of Corben's that it's really in my head that I've gotten.
Shadows of the Great. Here's one I didn't know I had.
Oh,
he
yeah.
Punisher the End.
Yeah.
I saw that someone posted this on Twitter. Let me get rid of my phone.
One of the interesting things about Corben's work on Poe is he did multiple adaptations over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was actually you that was telling me about that. And then I thought about it, and there was one I read years ago and just assumed it was the same one Went back and read it, and I went, "No, it's not." It's like I wouldn't have caught it if you hadn't have said that.
Yeah, it's the
one
exact same story.
Yeah.
It's just
I think it was Conquer
he
the Worm.
adapted it differently. It could have been. Yeah, he did several of those.
Yeah, but the Punisher, the end, he draws the Punisher walking through a nuclear wasteland with his flesh rotting off as he's going for that last kill. Nobody else could have done that, you know.
Yeah, I didn't even know I had this.
Yeah,
There
Old
it
Man
is.
Punisher there.
Because the end was, these ones were like all the Marvel superheroes in their last days. They did a series called The End.
Yeah, Hulk the End. What they were one shots. Hulk or graphic novels. Some of them. Hulk. That's a Garth Ennis and another one. But yeah, Corben is one of those things. When I saw, I mean, the guy was like in his 60s getting mainstream work on Marvel and stuff. I was flipping out. Yeah, that's the Corben stuff I know.
Right. This is the Corben stuff from Creepy and Eerie. This is all through the 70s. This is 1970s Corben. This is most people became Corben fans from this stuff. It's in black and white. It's in color.
Especially that black and white piece there. Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and it reminds me that John Severin might have been the only other artist that I knew of that used shading in those black and white pieces to indicate mass, to make almost like a 3D effect in terms of your character having, structure in 3 dimensions.
Right.
And Severin and Corben are like the two of the artists I know that do that. Most other ones don't.
Yeah. The closest I can think of is that Ken Stacy kind of does that with his painted art, but not quite there.
Yeah, most of Ken's stuff is airbrush too, which has a different texture.
Because what Corben does and Severin does too is drawn with a pencil. So it's kind of odd because it's such a distinctive mark that they have on their work. Yet nobody else is copying it.
Yeah, it's like you could pan the camera just a few degrees in any direction, and you'd almost be looking at a maquette.
I really hope I had these issues of Swamp Thing because, anyway, sorry.
I don't think I have those, but this came out in 2012. I don't know if it's still in print, but it's all of Corben's.
I think it still is.
And then we got this is he was doing. I mean, this is amazing. Like you said, he's in his 70s getting work from Marvel and DC. And here are two of the. These are both from Marvel. His Poe adaptations and his Lovecraft adaptations. Right. So he's even doing what years were these? 2006 and 2008 they came out. I think they came out in individual issues too.
Late 60s.
Late 60s. I don't even remember those coming out because Marvel always does a bad job advertising the stuff.
You're not gonna see these. And you have to bring everyone else back again, Tim.
Yeah, sorry. People are big. I don't know who's always watching them. It's just showing 13 people, but people are like Corben this, Corben that right now. So.
Yes. Look at these. These are pretty cool. Like Paolo said, these probably are out of print. These stuff Corben stuff goes out of print real quickly if you don't pick it up right away. It's gone. And another Marvel thing, Star the Slayer.
Yeah, okay. I thought about picking that one up, but it didn't seem to quite make it issue number 1.
Yeah, and I don't want to like rush through things, but I just kind of want to know: do you have the Bigfoot that he did?
I got that right here.
That's the one that I saw in the real world. Not online or anything like that. In the real world, that was the story that I saw for like about the whole time that thing was coming out. I saw a renaissance of new people digging Corben. Like they were just holy crap.
This is one of my favorite Corben stories right here. It's Steve Niles, Rob Zombie, and Richard Corben. And it's basically Bigfoot as a giant monster. I mean, Bigfoot is a monster in this. There's no, misunderstood creature.
He's You put a monkey, a caveman, or something like that in it, and I'm there. And to have Corben on Bigfoot, I was freaking out. I was just like, "This is perfect,"
4 inches. But once again, I don't think the trade paperback is in print.
I had the trade, but it came apart at the spine, and the pages just flew everywhere. The copy that I had, or the batch that it came out of, were poorly put together. I don't know what the deal was.
Who was the publisher on that one?
That's why I don't have mine. Mine fell to pieces, and I even used the glue, the glue, cement, rubber cement to fix it. It just fell apart.
Like I this is probably one of my favorite Corben, if not my favorite, one of my favorite Corben pieces, and you can't get it. That's what's so heartbreaking is.
Well, the nice thing is all the stories he did in the Mignola verse are still in print, so that it's good.
Gosh, the Crooked Man, Hellboy, the Crooked Man, my favorite Hellboy story, and Corben did wonders with that Appalachian horror for the 1950s with Hellboy. Yeah. Holy crap, it's so good.
I don't have that. I want to look. It's actually tough keeping track of Corben's work because it's everywhere and goes out of print. Like I have the I don't know where it is. It's not in with my other Corben stuff. I keep like all the Corben comics together. I swiped this from Bob Wyachek when I saw him do it. He's got a section of his comic collection that's by artist. In case he needs to go and get a sample of that artist,
I do that.
He can go over to that section and get it. And that's what I did with my there's like I only have this Corben stuff because it's Corben. There's no other, it's so I now have a Corben section of my comics where I put all my Corben stuff, no matter what series it's from, it goes in the Corben section.
And
again, I was able to dig all this out.
The two things that get me is that we're talking about maybe off the top of my head, 55 years worth of work. You know what I mean? That man work that we know of professionally. You got to understand that this guy, him and Frazetta are what amazes me, right? This is a guy that was a teenager in the 50s with greasers and all that stuff, and then turn around and look at the work he put out that came out of his head and the innovations he did. That's one thing. This is a man who I haven't really seen a lot of interviews. I've always heard he's really shy. And then you realize, I also heard that he just stays home and works a lot. All this stuff is really out of his head thing.
So much work.
Is what comes out of his head from a guy who was like around with the Greasers and Elvis and James Dean and all that stuff when that was big, Did
you see the piece that Howard Chaykin wrote on him that's been making its way around the social media world? Go out and find it and read. He does a really nice analysis of Corben. And I think his whole point of it, too, was like Corben was just a little bit older than him. Chaykin is like the baby boomer generation. And Corben was from the generation right before that. He was born right before the war.
Yeah.
And he was one of the only ones. Chaykin was observing that he was one of the only ones influenced by EC Comics, not Mad Magazine, firsthand. Because it's like Chaykin's whole generation was influenced a lot by Mad Magazine. It's like when you read a lot of those 60s guys talk about who influenced, a lot of it was Mad Magazine. They weren't really around for firsthand EC. So he named a couple of guys who were influenced, but it's like it was a very small cohort that was influenced by EC Comics horror and science fiction stuff. At the time it came out. Everybody else was like...
Corben was born in 1940. He would have been 13, 14, 15 when those came out.
Right.
Which is the best age for a future professional cartoonist to get inspired.
Right. Well, right there is the best thing that I have heard about Corben right there. That it fits in a little piece of the puzzle perfectly.
Right.
Yeah,
and I had never thought of that before until I read that Chaykin piece on it. I'm going to go track that down and save it too.
Man,
did a nice little video on Corben too.
Let's see. This is
say what, Scott?
I said Sleepy Reader did a nice little video on Corben too.
Yeah, I saw that one too. Then in 2012, I think, because it looks like he, I actually wrote down the stuff I had, and I put down the years it came out just so I can look at just so I knew when all this stuff came out that I bought. So it looked like from he did Bigfoot in 2005, and then the Marvel stuff of 2006 and 2008, and Star the Slayer was 2010. And then it looked like after that he went. Dark Horse started publishing his stuff. So we get Murky World, which is a one-shot. That's weird. He even to make it even harder to collect Corben stuff. He did a whole bunch of one-shots at Dark Horse.
Yeah.
That was one shot he did. And then he had 4 issues of Rage More with Jan Strand.
Yeah, I have those somewhere. Hopefully I got a complete set somewhere. Yeah.
4 issues of this, which came out in, once again, 2012. So we got 4 issues. And I really, like I said, I'm really a fan of this stuff. I thought he was just such a master at this point.
The man was 62 doing all that work consistently.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
It was crazy. That was 2012, and then 2013, Fall of the House of Usher. Once again, in fact, it was post, but only 2 issues. So it's like, you know, if you don't have these 2 issues, it must have been collected in a trade somewhere, but that trade's probably out of print.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to one shots, The Raven and the Red Death, The Premature Burial. I think this is all Poe stuff.
Yeah, I've got that over here.
Morella and the Murderers at the Rue Morgue. Once again, a 3 one-shot. So these are all from 2013,
13, 12, yeah,
and 2014. So it's like, you know, so once again, if you're not going to the comic store every week and putting those on your pull list, you're never seeing them. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, you know, it's
his Dark Horse stuff. Those Dark Horse stuff, they weren't there long. Those are the only. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking I could correct myself later, but those are the only Corben stuff I've ever seen in a back issue bin. You know, and I think that had more to do. I think that had more to do with the comic shop itself than anything else. You know,
right?
Man, everybody's popping in here. Gore Vidal's popped it. Man, they're flying through here.
Right. Ratings, I think those are all collected in the Edgar Allan Poe Spirits of the Dead trade paper. I imagine they are, but I'm sure that trade paperback is out of print.
Yeah, Saddened by the News, Creepax, Monero, Dulet, Bobius. Yep, met them all at the same time. Someone had something about Sam Keith on there. I always thought Sam Keith has some Corben, Arthur Pseudonym, and a lot of Baudet in his stuff. I mean, his women are straight up Baudet characters. So, you know.
Then Rat God he did in 5 issues in 2015.
I want to say Rat God was one that just grossed me out, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, something about that just grossed me out, man. Like, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say about Corben. He'll get a reaction. He's kind of like Geiger. He'll get a weird emotional reaction out of you.
This is the one that's kind of H.P. Lovecraft like. It's about, you know, a matter of fact, he may have even named the character Lovecraft. I can't remember, but it was obvious H.P. Lovecraft influence on this one. You know, and this Rat God is creepy looking.
Yeah,
with his weird skull head.
Yeah, I purposely did not buy those. They just creeped me out when I saw them. I mean, you know.
Once again, I don't know how available these are. I mean, maybe you can find them in a back issue bin, 5 issues.
Earlier, Ranger Vigilante mentioned that you could find a lot of German published art books. So maybe at this stage, his art books are actually a lot easier to find than any of his stories, which is kind of a shame. I mean, the art books should be for the collector, while the stories are the ones that should be available. So, yeah, now I hope that his wife gets everything back into print again. People deserve to discover all this stuff, including me.
Yeah,
right. Like I said, the only thing that I actually have from Richard Corben is the Cage miniseries, which I imagine is the only way a lot of people who are usually looking for stuff like this got to experience him. And it's a pretty good story. The story is not. It's Azzarello, so it's not Corben, but it's that storytelling works very works very well
Yeah.
for the character
Like
and the environment.
that was the one that turned me into 100% Corben fan, and I bought everything after it just because his artwork is so masterful in that Cage miniseries that it's like, even if I'm not that interested in the story, I'm still into it 100% because it's
Dark Horse Pro Trade got a second print, should be available.
Let's hope so.
Stay Puff is right there with me. Rat God is very H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Very gross, but he enjoyed it.
And this is the last thing he did for Dark Horse, which is 2018, Shadows of the Grave. This came out.
I didn't even see that solicited.
It's eight issues. It's in black and white, and there's like 3 different continuing stories in it. It's kind of an anthology, so it was like a throwback to 70s Corben. I think there was one continuing story and then a bunch of like short 8-page stories.
Yeah. Gore Vidal, Jared showed some of that and we talked about some of that, so make sure you catch it on the rewind there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Hellblazer stuff and the Frank Castle stuff, some of his my favorite.
This is where you can find the Hulk stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Zigor agreed with me on Liberatore.
Yeah.
There was a catalog from a French publisher within the last year that came out that highlighted a lot of Corben's work that was done at a European exhibit, and that's very hard to find here in the States.
Mm-hmm. But like my friend Bunch is like he can quote chapter and verse on Corben's 70s stuff, especially.
Yeah.
It'll be like
my friend Norm is the same way.
Stuff.
He's got like everything Corben's ever done.
But he's always like, oh, the 8-page story he did in Creepy number 76 call and names it. I'm like, no, I don't know that.
Right. Yeah.
That's the answer to all your questions. I don't know. No, I don't know. No, I don't know. No, I don't know. But like I said, he really is. He's the biggest Corben fan I know. So,
right.
I think this is a pretty good little comment here. Mainstream comics caught up to Corben.
Yeah.
That might be a good way to put it, because I was wanting to say something about one of the things about Vertigo that might have sucked me in is like it was pulling from some of those older guys who are already doing this kind of stuff. But I think that says it better. Mainstream comics caught up to Corben on some of this stuff.
Well, it also helped that at the time Marvel had their Max imprint, because that's what this is. These are all Max imprint books, and so was the Punisher, and that's what it's good for, because this isn't superhero stuff. So if Marvel's gonna do a Max imprint, they should do it not with their superheroes, but with everything else, anything else they can come up with. Star the Slayer. They don't need a Spider-Man Max imprint. They do it with Star the Slayer.
Yeah, but then it's like I said, their advertising is terrible.
Yeah. That's because it's non-existent. That's why it's terrible.
It would be so easy. I don't understand who's been working in public relations at Marvel in the last 20 years.
Because the way it works is you give your advertising to your best-selling stuff. Because if you give your advertising to Spider-Man, you can pump it up from, let's say, random odd Spider-Man comic. You can pump it up from 50,000 to 70,000. If you give your advertising to Star the Slayer, you can pump it up from 12,000 to 14,000. So that's all it comes down to.
Yeah, it needs to be distributed advertising, and that's where the specialized press comes into play. But ever since the comic book press went online, it's become amateur hour.
Right.
Even more amateur than any of the fanzines that existed before the magazines appeared.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it all comes down to where Marvel has always been short-staffed. So the people that are going to do any kind of advertising for this stuff, first of all, it's got to be cheap, because Ike's not spending any money on this, and he's still the one in charge of the purse strings. And like I said, if you can advertise Spider-Man and bump your sales up by 20,000 copies, and advertise character X, and that'll only bump your sales up by 4,000 copies.
But that's where the specialized press comes in, and it doesn't even cost anything except man hours, and
Right.
even then you can do it sort of distributed advertising way. Or
they don't have the man hours. They don't even have that. Because
I forgot about that.
They have always stripped down the staff to the least it can be.
I think I have this very issue too. He did pop up in the 90s in a Batman black and white story. I think that was the volume 1. They're up to volume 4 on those Batman black and white miniseries.
And that's also because if you look at the Batman black and white from the 90s and 2000s, that was edited by DC's longtime art director, Mark Chiarello, who got fired in one of these layoffs the last couple of years. And so he really knows what he's doing when it comes to artists. So he hired all these terrific artists who maybe would never in a million years get hired by anyone else, to do a monthly Batman comic or anyone. But he got them to do all these beautiful Batman black and white things.
Those first 2 black and white series that were done, they're amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
they really
just
are.
a murderer's row of talent on those things.
Right. And that's all Mark Chiarello know what he's doing. Your average editor could not put one of those books together because your average editor is literary and not artistic.
Yeah.
So your average editor might not have the connections or the wherewithal to put together that murderer's row of artists.
Right. They had good writers too.
Yeah.
Gaiman,
I think it was Gaiman and Bisley got together. Anyway, Neil Gaiman had a story in there where everything happened in comics with Batman and the Joker. It was like that Wile E. Coyote and Sheepdog skit where they were off the clock and you got to see backstage. That's what they did well actors.
Other than the animated series, my favorite Batman story ever is in either the first or the second series, and it's written by Archie Goodwin, and it was illustrated by Gary Gianni.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my favorite Batman stories. Who did it? Munoz? I think Jose Munoz drew it. It was in the first or second volume of that Batman black and white. And I just remember Batman was almost a background character. It was about a horn player. And it was a really good story.
Right.
And a lot of very music inspired.
Later there, Jonan.
Goodbye.
Hello. Appreciate it. He had some nice work, and I want to make sure he got a goodbye there. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I mean,
Corben, Gore Vidal says he thinks Dave Sim may have been influenced by Corben too.
That's what I was going to
do.
Yeah, I popped that up there a minute ago. Didn't want to interrupt anybody and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Corben's one of those guys when you start thinking about him. I mean, he's just been there for me from the beginning. Those heavy metals around the house, he's one of those guys that was just always there, and I never knew anything about the guy. I didn't know how old he was. For all I knew, he was like 20 years old in 1977 in my little kid mind, if I thought about it.
Right.
So to find out later on how,
it's like in terms of finding interviews, things like that with him, he's like one step more than Steve Ditko was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's reclusive, but he's not as reclusive as Steve Ditko was, but he's close.
Yeah, I've always heard painfully shy as I got older. If somebody did meet Corben or talk about him, it was painfully shy. That's what they said. So,
He was?
Yeah.
I would have to whip out the advertisement. I don't remember. What did he do?
I know the name, but I don't think I ever saw much of his work.
Gary Gianni's work. Gary's like one of my all-time favorite artists.
Uh-huh.
Gary's work that was published by Dark Horse. The first thing he ever did for them that I can remember, he did a Classics Illustrated adaptation. He did a Classics Illustrated adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea that will just frickin' knock your socks off. It's that good. He also did the backup stories that were in the first Hellboy arc, and they were called Monster Men.
Okay.
It was another cult detective, but it was more like a traditional Victorian era motif more so than Hellboy itself was. And then Gary Gianni also did illustrations for a couple of Shadow series that are actually written by Mike Coluto.
Okay. Did he do some covers?
Yeah, he did several covers. He did covers for not only for the Shadow series, he did covers for Indiana Jones, for Doc Savage.
I got him right here. I got the.
This is just the Dark Horse stuff. I think
Indiana
that's
Jones right here on the shelf.
Probably the mainstream publisher he's done the most work with. He did one of the pulp covers for DC's Green Lantern annual. That was that one year when they were doing pulp influence covers. Gosh, he's done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was starting to wonder if he was the guy who did the covers for 1602 that had like
that's a different artist. I don't remember that artist's name, but it's a different. I know who you're talking about.
I'm trying to think of the Italian artist. Oh, what was his name? He did stuff for Marvel in the 90s and onward. He did this really fancy flowing style, sort of like Alan Davis. Oh, what was his name? But even like more detailed.
Do you remember what titles he worked on?
Well, I don't even some X titles, some of this. He just reminded me. It was that same. I think he didn't do a lot, but he became really hot for a moment, and I don't know whatever happened to him. I'll see if I can remember it as we talk.
Okay.
He didn't get canceled for doing some Marvel covers, did he? Like Spider-Woman and stuff.
No, that wasn't
Claudio. You mean Claudio Castellini?
That's who I'm thinking of. Claudio Castellini.
He did DC versus Marvel.
Was he one of the artists that did some work on Silver Surfer, especially with Galactus?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Wait a minute.
I don't know.
I can't remember. There's one particular artist that did some of those, in the past 10 years. It was really good.
I have the guy you're talking about. If I'm going to kick myself, it's the same man. I have him on Instagram. There's somebody that puts his work up on Instagram all the time.
Okay.
Claudio Castellini. Has he done anything recently?
Claudio Castellini works for the Bonelli Studios. He created the character called Nathan Never. He drew the first issue, and he's the cover artist for all the monthly comics, but he doesn't do interior art.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he did much interior art then either in the 90s for Marvel, but he did some. And I remember him doing posters too. He was very popular for a while. Is that him?
I thought I was following him, but he has one picture on Instagram.
You saw that one picture and followed him, and then he never posted anything else.
Yeah, I did a thing where I purged a few months ago, and I guarantee, if he didn't follow me, if I saw people hadn't followed me back, I just got rid of them. So,
so you want to see what I got this week?
It's been 5 years. Yeah, I was trying to figure out a way to segue into that. I've got 2-3 things after when you're done. Yeah.
First thing I got was crossover number 2. This is
Bleeding
Donnie
Cool.
Cates and Jeff Shaw.
I saw Bleeding Cool's getting on the hype machine for that book, so I hope it's still a good book after what you said last time.
What's funny is every week I get a final issue cutoff from my LCS, an email, where I can just click on a link and add. I can either add an individual issue or a series to my pull list. And usually, like I said, I'll buy issue 2, and then the final next issue's cutoff will be this Monday. Except for some reason, the issue 3 cutoff was last Monday. And I was like, I haven't decided if I want to get this or not. So I added just issue 3 on to my pull list. So, but after this, I was like, I'll decide after we get. So this is going to go on my pull list now. I did enjoy issue 2. And I also enjoy the physical comic itself because it's got a nice card stock for the cover. Sometimes just like enjoying holding the comic is a good thing. Mm-hmm. So once again, this is a story where basically every famous superhero you ever heard of came into our world. And no one knows why or how it happened. and they all came into Denver, and they built this big dome around Denver to keep themselves in and the rest of the world out. And so the world is going crazy, not trusting, because like all of a sudden Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are in Denver for real. And in this one, and people start to hate comic books, and like you're not allowed to, like they call them pre-event comics. No one collect, like any comics made have to be a non-superhero. And in the beginning of this issue is Brian K. Vaughan was just assassinated, and then they mention there are 3 other comic book writers who are assassinated, and then we get back into the story of there's this. The story is basically this guy had his comic shop burned down.
Is it meta? Is this meta? Has the book gone meta? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, this is our world with all the superheroes we know are in Denver behind this dome, and the world's trying to figure out what to do about it, and it's getting violent. And it's like here's the one little girl, and the little girls, the people who escaped have like moire dots on their face, so they look like old printed. That's how you can tell they're not from this world.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you when I think that book has has really made it is when they if they're burning down comic book shops, if they're killing the comic book writers, when they come after us YouTubers and we appear in the book. That's
when they kill Hallermouth.
No.
Yes. Yes, Sava's Brian K. Vaughan.
Well, that's
and
okay.
Also, I think
he's just the Earth 2 Hallermouth.
Yeah. The Earth. And then it's funny too. They said something like Brian K. Vaughan, acclaimed Marvel Comics writer, and then over here this guy's saying, "Holy shit, BKV! What the Marvel writer? Really? That's how you remember him?" So like, this comic fan's even upset that Brian K. Vaughan was called a Marvel Comics writer rather than a comics writer.
And then Gorvidal has this to say about it: "What will the world do without science? Even in a comic world,
we're doing without it now." So it's really gotten. The second issue was pretty cool. But and there's this one girl who worked at the comic shop, and she's kind of our hero, I guess you'd call her. And she lost her parents to the dome. Her parents might be in Denver, they might be dead. She got out, her parents didn't. So she wants to try and make her way back in and find her.
What is the deal with comic books doing stuff to the Denver, Colorado? Even in Secret Wars, like that's where they pulled Beyonder pulled Denver, Colorado onto Battle World and made a part of it.
I think I think if you want an isolated city, Denver is your go-to city.
That's one of the reasons that Chuck Rosansky was able to put so much business in Denver, because there aren't other major cities nearby like there are here on the East Coast. Yeah.
Stephen King's The Stand, they all gathered in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, after they burned down, one of the guys burnt down Chicago on his way for the big theater.
Right. And I think it's because of the ice.
Detroit. Anyway, yeah.
And also in one of the Tom Clancy novels I read, they nuked Denver. It all took place in Denver, Colorado, and they nuked Denver. So I think if you want an isolated city where something big happens in the United States, you pick Denver.
Yeah, and if you want a dirty, grimy feel to your comic book and all this stuff like that, you set it in Cleveland with Howard the Duck and Harvey the Car. I'm just going to give a nod of agreement here, just to this comment. That's all. Yeah.
I've never read Donny Cates much of his work. That's the first thing I've read by him.
I won't comment because I have read some of his stuff, but it seems like people hype his stuff up more than what it really is. It's like stuff I read was fine reading it, then I'm had people really hyping his stuff up where I'm like, no,
I think people just like to hype up Marvel and DC writers. That's what it is. Marvel and DC hyped them up. People hyped them up. I don't know where more
community took place in Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder, yeah. Boulder, yeah. I knew it was Colorado.
Trivia that sticks in your mind from when you're a little kid.
That's when you don't want a big city. But it's funny. I was
sorry.
Ran Morrison.
Okay.
It's like it's like you can't do that with any of the cities on the East Coast because they're too close together.
Yeah.
It's like New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. They're all within a few hours of each other.
Yeah.
So it's like they're not isolated, but Denver, nothing's near Denver.
They had a whole Avengers issue of Molecule Man and the Silver Surfer putting Denver, Colorado back to the Earth, within the plates of the continent in the magma and all that stuff. And I'm just like, again, and now they put a dome over it,
Huh.
I'm not familiar with Kate's at all.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't read enough of them to have an opinion on them. But that seems to be what everybody I see on YouTube says about them. There's the people who hype them, and then all the people I know are like, I don't know what the hype is about. But
yeah, I was like that with Tom King. Yeah.
I think we're getting towards the end of Red Mother, which has been I've been really enjoying it because this issue was all about sort of a big reveal of where the main character, all of her friends who are putting her at the center of this Red Mother ritual are like, hey, let's start the ritual. Ha ha. And she's like, what? What's going on? And so this issue was all about the ritual of they're calling up the Red Mother, whoever that is, and this demon who is her herald.
It almost looks like Saul Bass drew the cover of that issue.
What was that?
So it almost looks like Saul Bass drew the cover of that issue.
It's very designy with
to the 4 Donny Cates fans that may have gotten mad and left. You can come back. It's all good. We're all friends. We didn't bash the guy.
There's a difference between hyping Tom King and hyping Donny Cates. Tom King gets hyped and then he disappoints you. Donny Cates gets hyped and then there's something there. It was written, I guess.
Keep talking, Paolo. One person came back. Keep talking. One came back. We're down to 3.
It was Donny Cates did a thing. A thing? Yes, a thing. Is it a good thing? It's a thing.
It's all right thing.
I don't know Donny Cates from Phoebe Cates.
It was actually the artwork in this that sold me too. This issue artwork was very sort of Tom Palmer 80s Avengers artwork. Sort of the thick black brushy line. I really kind of liked on it.
Well, yeah, that's Palmer's my favorite inker, man. That would be enough to at least get me interested. I mean,
you don't really see that in this today's digital age where everything's thin line and then filled with color and maybe modeled in color. You don't see this thick, lush Tom Palmer-esque line anymore.
See, I try not to be that guy that when somebody mentions Tom Palmer, I try not to go like, I've met him. I've got a picture of us together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's the only guy I'm like that with. Somebody says Tom Palmer, I automatically want to be like, yeah.
You're talking about inkers and having a really thick line. That's one of the things I liked about Seth Fisher's style. He had a really thick line, almost like Moebius thickened.
Nice. Okay.
Then speaking of comics that you don't like to hold in your hand, we've got Norse Mythology, and this one's just too thin. It feels flimsy, but the art is not. This is take a look at this. Craig Russell doing the layouts, and this guy called what's his name? I've never heard of him. Peter Kowalski doing the finishes, and he does a nice job. He does a nice job with sort of this Craig Russell style.
You know what that thing deserves? An album-sized hardcover.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of album-sized hardcovers, what did I just see that's coming out? Oh, Adventure Man. The is that Brubaker writing it? And
was it Dodson that was doing
who's drawing it? Terry Dodson's drawing it. Okay. And in December, they're coming out with a European-style hardcover of it.
I wish every U.S. publisher would adapt that European hardcover format.
See, I don't think every publisher has to. But do you remember what was the name? The one that Terry Dodson did before this, Red something?
Don't know.
It was once again, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. He put out 2 or 3 issues of a comic. I forget the name of it now. Red Storm, it was So it's on my shelf in the back. But I picked up a couple of issues of it, and it was okay. Then they were like, they're coming out with the European style hardcover on it, and it was fairly cheap. I was like, I'll pick up that. And I liked it so much better in the big artwork size that I was like, wow. So that maybe, once again, I picked up the first issue of Adventure Man, and it was okay. But I didn't keep going with it. But then when I heard it's coming out the European style hardcover, I was like, you know what? I'll get that.
Well, the story's pretty slow. I mean, considering each comic is 64 pages, you'd think that it would go anywhere. But I think it's picking up. I think it's picking up. The people who like it,
everybody who likes it says it's much better than the first issue. So, but I'd like to. I'm going to read it and buy it and read it in that European style hardcover album, just because I liked his other one. Hold on, I'm going to go in the back just because I want to see what this is.
Okay. While he's doing that, real quick, have you guys ever heard of a book called Roxana and the Quest of the Time Bird?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to check it out. There's a couple volumes, and some people were bragging on the. I'm not even real sure how I ran across it because it was totally through online stuff where I was looking for something else. But apparently, there's 4 or 5 volumes of this Roxana. It's kind of like a barbarian-looking kind of story, but the art kind of draws in a Disney style. Roxana and the Quest of the Time Bird. I'm trying to. There we go. That's volume 2 or 3. They're collected editions from the 80s. And every time I find one that's affordable, it's a piece of crap. And the rest of the books sell for over $35.
Red One.
The artist Loisel has a series of Peter Pan graphic novels in France.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he did something else. Okay, here's a French Laquette l'Oiseau du Temps.
That cover of Red One that you have there reminds me of Phil Noto.
Yeah.
Oh.
Phil Noto and Terry Dodson are kind of
he's got a very nice graphic.
Yeah. But
contrast going on there.
I liked it so much better in this format than the individual issues, which isn't always true with me because I like individual issues a lot.
You got Palo.
But this format just read so much better for the Terry Dodson art.
Right. So you can count on the comics and Gore Vidal to know what I'm talking about because they've read it.
I love. Yeah, that's why I love doing this. I'm like,
man, there are so many great comics that come from France that we just don't see over here.
Yeah.
No.
You know, there are some people
write them in English.
Yeah, but there are some people that when I mentioned that the U.S. industry should abandon the periodical comics and go full album, it's like, oh, then I wouldn't get comics every week. Well, yes, you would, because there are over 5,000 comics being published, 5,000 graphic albums being published in France per year, which makes it over 100 a week. You of course, you're not going to buy all of them because there are no universes, and your favorite characters really only come back next year. But if you like comics and you want to try other stuff, there's no shortage of material for you to try.
Yeah, there's the flaw in your plan. If you like comics and want to try other stuff, then you don't want to try other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, don't get me started on. Yeah.
Well, when DC stops publishing comics,
and then of course the new Usagi Yojimbo came out, which I've been buying every week for 35 years.
Yeah, so
still as good as ever.
So where Dark Horse is actually going to reprint the first hardcover of the Usagi Saga compilation, and that thing sold out, and the aftermarket prices on that went sky high. So I'm glad to see that they're going to reprint it.
Dylan Dog.
Well, like I said, IDW has been colorizing the early ones too to bring them out in trade. So, this is the first part to the next story. Always good. I can always count on Usagi. So, then the last thing I got was a first issue. Homesick Pilots. Coloring is so advanced and was treated with more respect nowadays. It's treated as an art today. But
not everything is yellow now.
It was funny because I actually put this first issue on my pull list because like I said, when I get the final order cutoff in my email, I look and see if there's anything I want. And this one caught my eye, and I put it on. And then I saw it. Then they send me another email that tell me what's coming out, what's in my pull list that week. When I saw this was in my pull list, I was like, "Homesick Pilots." I couldn't even remember what interested me about it, but it was that the artist Casper Weingard, who drew Peter Cannon, that what's his name, Kieran
Dwyer
was that yeah, the guy who wrote Wicked and the Divine did. So I was like, you know what, I like his art. I'll give this a read. And it was pretty interesting. What was weird was I didn't exactly. Homesick Pilots is the name of this character's punk band. So it's about these two kind of rival punk bands that want to throw a show in a haunted house, and then bad things happen.
That's Newcastle. Are you still there? I've lost everybody. Do you still see me?
We're still here.
We lost Paolo.
Disappeared.
What has happened here?
I don't know. Do you hear us, Tim?
There we go. There's Paolo back.
Oh,
Everything
there he is.
I have no
Did
idea.
you just suffer a wardrobe malfunction?
I don't know. I couldn't see anybody either.
Trust me, you don't want to see that.
But what you just said, that was a plot for like my favorite issue of Hellblazer. I think it's like number 11 called Newcastle. What you just said,
But then what? It's funny. I didn't realize what happened at the very end until I read the preview description of it. All the haunted house ghosts get inside her, and then she's like wandering the country for some reason. Like at the very end,
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, we get like all of a sudden she disappears in the haunted house. Like there's all these punk band stuff happening, and then she shows up at the end, and she's just like possessed by these ghosts looking for something. So I guess she's going to be wandering around these ghosts. Maybe the name of the band is also the name of the ghosts, Homesick Pilots. So they're piloting her and trying to, I guess, go to the other side. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I enjoyed the first issue. It was good stuff. Another Image Comics book. Oh, Sleepy's here. It was the revenge of Brian K. Vaughan, Paolo. He made you disappear. The ghost of Brian.
Fabled Marvel writer.
Marvel writer. So what did you get, Tim?
Well, I've got something ready to share here real quick because I would not have gotten this book. I hit a Books A Million when we were out and about last weekend.
Why didn't you use your brakes?
Huh?
Why didn't you use your brakes?
Now money. But anyway, I took the dust cover off. But I ended up getting this Dust Covers by Dave McKean, and it's all the Sandman covers Dave McKean did.
Cool.
That's the third version of that book.
Right. Well, I mean, I got it on sale brand new.
I'm a sucker for any book about comic book covers.
Mm-hmm.
I just love them all.
Yeah, I have the original version of that one. It's a good book.
But it's got a little story where David Keane's telling the story of Neil Gaiman, I think, beginning Sandman and getting the idea back in there or something. I haven't really popped through it. But the reason that I went ahead and got it is, let me share screen here, because I saw the cover. When I saw Dave McKean stuff, I thought he used like doll pieces or something, little doll houses or toys or something. And turns out he actually builds these big models, like this one for Sandman #1. That's like a 5-foot model. Yeah.
When you say mixed media, they're not kidding.
Right. So I always thought he did these things small, not a drawing that's like 4 foot tall there. You know what I mean? Or 3.5 feet or whatever. So yeah, that's what really made me go ahead and get that book when I saw it.
Yeah, that's a good pickup. That's a really good book. You'll enjoy that one.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There we go. So that was fun, but then I've eyeballed this a couple times, but it was on sale for a really good price, and I have all these issues anyway, but I have them all collected. But this is an era of the Legion of Superheroes that I would put right up there with Teen Titans and X-Men of that era in the early '80s. The problem I think with a lot of people is that it's not a dark book. It'll have dark moments. It'll have moments that shock you, like the Emerald Empress grabbing Sunboy by the chin while he's, held captive there, and then just crushing his jaw. You know what I mean? Little moments like that. But this is Keith Giffen, Paul Levitz, and this is 297 to 313 and a couple annuals. But if you start at the Great Darkness Saga and go all the way up to like issue 320, that's a good 20 issues or something like that. This is a great run. Well,
the Great Darkness Saga was right before that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
But
this is something I can now just pull off the shelf with a few other Legion trades instead of digging through the books. This was a fantastic era. I mean, it's got Legion 301 was one of those books that I want to sit down and just always wanted to do a video walking people through it. I don't know if they get into it or not, but I've seen the Legion pick up at least on YouTube a little bit the last couple of years. There's suspicions that the Bendis Legion may be ending at number 12. I don't know where people are getting at, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, I've got the Curse and the Great Darkness Saga both in hardcover next to each other.
Yes,
but I still need to get. I know they've reprinted Earth War, and I need to get that.
Finally, Earth War. That's the one I want to get. I have not read Earth War since I was like 7 and didn't even know it was a thing until later on. I got told that's what that was. Earth War was like the point where the Legion went a certain direction into the 80s, and they built everything off of that the Legion did. So for like a Legion collector, that's an important story.
It's so funny because to me, Earth War is the title of an Alien 4-shot miniseries.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just wanted to show your Dave McKean stuff reminded me that Seth, for Clyde fans, built all the buildings in the town out of foam core. So he's got all these buildings he built out of foam core. They had an exhibition of them in Canada somewhere.
David Peterson that does Mouse Guard does that as well, and he'll post photos of that. And
Gerhard.
Jim Gurney that did Donatopia does amazing mock-ups of videos like buildings like that. They're incredible.
Nice.
Wow.
I'm thinking Gerhard had a street, whatever the story is, Melmoth maybe. Anyway, he had a street that he had built with the buildings and the sidewalk. I swear I think he had that at Heroes Con, but I can't remember. Now I got this.
This is Palookaville issue 20. After issue 19, they turned them into little hardcovers instead of comic books.
That's cool. You could get by with that in school, thinking it's a notebook. But I went ahead and got this one. This is Brad Meltzer's first comic book work. This is the Green Arrow that followed Kevin Smith. And this is a fantastic story. When people die, they have a will and things are supposed to be given to people. So Green Arrow comes back to life. Brad Meltzer comes in with his lawyer background. He was Brad Meltzer and Judd Winnick were roommates in college, so those two guys would sit around and talk about comic book stories they'd want to do and stuff, right? So this is basically like an on the road kind of story where he's going around seeing if his will was fulfilled and to get his stuff back or tell people. And they have an awesome fight with Solomon Grundy. Yeah, I mean, it's really good. But it's a hardback, and one of the reasons I went ahead to pick it up, even though I've already got these issues, is that they have designed it to go with the Absolute Edition of Kevin Smith's run of Green Arrow. So this is my favorite run of Green Arrow books, finally right on a shelf, and both in hardback. But I don't know, for some reason I thought it was very cool that somebody thought ahead to make it match the Absolute Edition. Right. I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Trade dress is what that's called.
If I was on the fence, and this just pulled me all the way over when I was like, they match. That's going to be really cool.
Speaking of trade dress, the latest comic shop news, they're putting out the 300th Marvel Masterworks. So they're going to have Marvel Masterworks alternate covers for a bunch of comics that month, where they're using that Masterworks border for a bunch of stuff. And Masterworks is one where they're still using, like, they changed the design on it, but they still print dust jackets of the old trade dress just for Chuck Rosansky and people who still want the old trade. They want all 300 issues to look the same on their shelf.
Nice. That is awesome. I do have I'm looking at my shelf over here, some Vertigo trades and some Marvel stuff. I'm like, why did you the OCD kicks in for a lot of that. Classic Legion.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the Bendis Legion ends. Yeah.
I didn't even know what was still going on.
It's awful. I mean, there's people, you know. I can't get beyond 2 issues. I didn't get past the Millennium. In terms of art, I think the Marvel UK Transformer covers are often underrated from a horror perspective. Okay, nice.
I think they're underrated by us because we've never seen them.
Yeah, I saw Brian Hitch on there for them. That's nice.
Yeah, anything by Brian Hitch is probably pretty good.
I still can't believe that Charles Vest did a Transformers cover.
I have several Transformers UK storylines collected in oversized books by Titan. They came out about 15 years ago.
Tim, I had that when I was a kid.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. This has been re-released, obviously, right? This is not the original 1979 or whatever it was game, you know? But it blew my mind when I saw this. I'm finding it at Books A Million and Ollie's. I got this one at Ollie's, just the orange price tag. But these are on sale. I don't remember them being re-released. But now you have to be very careful because I grabbed this one up. What pushed me over the edge to go ahead and buy this old Star Wars game is because they have an exclusive figure in here, and people are pushing through, busting it open, grabbing the figure, and leaving the game behind. So if you do decide to go for some nostalgia or a Star Wars collector, make sure you got your figure, you know, if you're going to pay for it.
What figure is that?
Well, it's Grand Moff.
Oh, Tarkin.
Okay.
Tarkin. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it threw me off there, friend. Yeah, it was Tarkin.
Yeah, I even remember the little spinner that came in that where you had to flick it with your finger to get
the figure every kid wants to play with.
I was about to call him Peter Cushing. I was like, what's his Star Wars name? Wait a minute. You know, I'm like,
you be Darth Vader, I'll be Luke Skywalker, and you can be Grand Moff Tarkin. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for at least a month. It was this game and Uno all the time, left and right. You know, so yeah. So yeah, got that. I don't know what the deal is. So they were just on sale. I don't remember them being released brand new. So.
Oh, and here's the Jeff Jones and Gary Frank series, Geiger, not Giger. Post-apocalyptic series that's coming out. And we got one image there and one image up there. Not much so far, but I'll be picking that up just because I said if they should be doing something other than shouldn't be wasting their time with Doomsday Clock. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. It's really weird. Every time somebody says post-apocalyptic, a new book's coming out, I'm always like, I need to back up and get Battle Boy by Paul Pope. I've always wanted to read. They wouldn't give him Commandy, so he took whatever he was going to do with Commandy and put it in, Battle Boy. I think he's like the son of a god or something in that one.
Speaking of Paul Pope, I just watched a video about Alex Toth a few days ago. And evidently Alex was a little dismissive of something that Paul did at one time. And it basically, you could tell by the look on his face, it just crushed him.
Well, Alex Toth does not have the best reputation as a human being.
No.
As an artist, everybody loves him. But he was... matter of fact, I think it was Howard Chaykin was just saying something about him recently. Like, you know what? He's a great artist, but you don't want to hang out with him.
Right.
And as for the hardest to read logo, this is the other Comic Shop Weekly came with a winter special here. Winter preview. And this is a new book by what's this guy's name? Brandon Graham. And it just had the cover there with this logo, and I'm like, I cannot read that logo for the life of me.
What the hell is that?
He's trying to draw like
rain hammers. What?
Rain like hammers.
Rain like hammers.
He's trying to use a font from the 70s.
E's or G's.
Yeah, he's trying to use a font from the 70s, like you'd find it on some little kid's notebook or something.
That font is like Peter Max drew that when he was drunk.
Yeah, I think he hand drew it.
I'm so over the notebook art that you doodled in study hall. These are you know, if you're writing a story about a little kid in the 7th grade, use it then, you know. But we're grown ups. You're a grown up.
I'm so over like script handwritten fonts. Oh my god, I can't stand them.
Yeah, I know.
Give me something nice and clear and easy to read.
Yeah. Little integrity with what you're doing there. Stop trying to be cutesy, you know, man.
Vigarian Vigilante liked to play with Grand Moff Tarkin as a kid. It was his favorite.
I mean, he got to tell Darth Vader what to do. So
yeah, mine was the Boba Fett figure. I think I told the story about getting into a fight to get it back. Yeah,
that was a lot of people loved Boba Fett.
Yeah,
just because that armor, it was so cool looking.
Yeah. I didn't even see Empire Strikes Back, but Stepdad snuck off and did. I'll never forget.
And to spoil last week's Mandalorian, Boba Fett is back and he's being body shamed.
I want to binge those around Christmas with Wonder Woman, but okay.
If you've been stuck inside the Sarlacc for a few years, you might get body shamed too. So.
Is this what somebody meant about him having a dad bod? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, I saw some kind of comment about that.
Okay, I saw a comment. Oh well.
Did you see the list that they came out of all these Star Wars related projects are coming out in the next few years?
Yep, but I completely ignored it, just like all the Marvel stuff.
There is one in particular that I'm interested in. The other ones, but
it actually made me sad that everyone was so excited about all these announcements from Disney about Marvel and Star Wars.
Were they really excited? Were they really excited?
I'm glad I don't have to hear about The Walking Dead and Doctor Who every 5 minutes anymore.
Yeah, at least everybody was talking about it on social media. I'm like, I wish people could get 10% this excited about the comic books coming out.
Right. I did the exact same quote. I'd use 10% to one of my friends, and but I want to see this show. And I was like, you just missed the whole point of what I was trying to say.
The Bleeding Cool article, I think I was starting to read it. I think it was Bleeding Cool because on the Google, as you know, whatever you search for the most and the algorithm and it listens to you, it'll give you news headings. And I know whatever I clicked on that was announcing that, when they said American Chavez, I was done. You know what I mean? I can believe a man can fly. I can believe a man can survive, you know, as a baby across light years through space and have his planet blow up. But I cannot believe in a dimension where you spontaneously have a baby. You know, no matter without the parts. You know, the chemical reaction.
It's always interesting where people draw their lines.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm not going to believe that.
Please tell me that the baby's name is Bud.
No, it was American Chavez. It's a planet where I don't know what they did, but they did explain it better. But
I think someone's parents didn't teach that person where babies come from.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a character that was actually literally pissed on a rock and the sun came out, and at least there's some science to it. You know, but
Zeus springs forth from the mind of Kronos. Oh, at least he thought about him.
There we go. Yeah.
Speaking of Zeus, Tiny Lister died.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. That does mean fat in German. There you go.
Boba Fett. I want to hear that for the rest of my life now.
Guys, come on! You never called someone Boba Fett as a kid?
No, really, no. We didn't. No, we have respect for Star Wars. I don't know what the deal was. I mean, it was.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I did either, but I was probably in the vicinity when someone else did.
Well, it was like I think it was a little kid honor code. First of all, Star Wars was cool. It was like, that was the one thing everybody really agreed on, and then it was, but I think it was sort of like you could kind of have a little debate with your friends about Star Wars, but let that kid from over the hill in the new neighborhood come down and it's on. You two may have been disagreeing on something, but he can't talk to you like that.
Territorial.
All right, well, guys, I got to be winding it up here.
Okay.
We have up enough already.
I told you I want to turn into an eggplant at 8:00.
Oh yeah. Okay.
These newlyweds.
I'm glad somebody got it.
Well, I had to say that because eggplant can be a racist term too.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
That's got to be a northern thing.
It's an Italian thing. That's what the Italians call the blacks. I think they call them eggplant.
I think I heard somebody refer to somebody as an eggplant, but I don't think I went that way with it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, nice.
Mm-hmm. I forget how it's said in Italian, but that's what the Italians call the blacks.
Yeah, I think thanks to social media and the eggplant emoji, I think it's been taken. I think it's been claimed by another country. The flag has been stuck
not in Little Italy.
That's pretty good, man. Well, man, it was a sad thing that we were talking about today. Corben passing, but I think we really celebrated his work. Plus, he made it to 80. I mean, we all wished for that good of a run. And he had people rediscovering his work the last 20 years of his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tom Bagley nailed it. Everybody caught up with him.
Yeah.
So few comic book artists keep going that good that long.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will get some publisher to make a nice compilation of his work as well.
I hope anything comes out of it, anything collected right now. You know what I mean? Just what you can grab. I want the Bigfoot Jared showed. I had that in my hands, and like I said, it disintegrated because of crappy things. So that's the one that haunts me. So.
Crappy binding on those TPBs.
One more time for Paolo.
Waka waka waka.
I'll try to make this the official coffee cup for the show, man.
You're going to wake up at 3 a.m. and you're going to have Pac-Man fever going through your brain.
I have a Pac-Man hat here somewhere also, So
I have an official water bottle. That's it.
Oh, wow.
There we go. All right, guys. Everybody have a good weekend and be excellent.
We'll catch you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.